We are live. Hello, KoptR community. We're here tonight for our safety seminar. I'm just seeing people slowly trickle in, so I'm going to give it a few moments as the folks come in. And as you are entering the room, please introduce yourself in the chat. If this is your first time here, our webinar tool, there's a few functions that would be of interest to you. There is a chat button. Say where you're coming from. My name is Sharon. I'm with KoptR. I'm currently in Ottawa on a very dreary, rainy day. So hopefully you're enjoying some beautiful, much more exciting weather than me. And let us know if you're flying right now or and what you are flying. Okay, seeing the numbers build up a little. Hi, Leonard. Welcome. Are you flying, do you fly drones, traditional aircraft, fixed wing? Andrew from Barrie. Sun's starting to shine, but was raining. Salman from Ottawa. Hello. Good to see you, Richard. Thank you very much for joining us from St. Thomas today. Excellent. And for those who are just joining the room right now, we're going to give it a few moments as others enter the webinar room as well. We have Valdor. There's a big hello, Jean-Guy from Alain Brunel. Okay, Ralph from Westmont. There's good Quebec representation tonight.
Yep.
Okay, Simon Simon from Montreal, flying a Mini. KoptR flies a Mini too. So I mean, they're market dominant, but hopefully we see other options out there sometime soon. Glenn from Eastern Ontario. So there's a lot folks in the room. Welcome, welcome. If this is your first KoptR safety seminar, we host these on a monthly basis. And it really is intended to share some information about what's happening within the industry, help reduce the number of incidents and accidents in all areas of aviation. We're Canada's largest aviation association. Tonight's seminar is on building drones or remotely piloted aircraft. And this is a very new area for me. So there are experts in the room. We have Juan Carlos Rivas, as well as Jean-Guy Ouellet from KoptR Image. And I believe they're the first or one of the first ground schools for Rpas pilots in Canada. So we are with some very qualified folks today. We have some representation from Vancouver. Tim, Richard, welcome. All right, well, let's get started. So I think some of you have heard me give a little bit of information how it's tonight's going to run. Today's seminar does qualify for the 24-month pilot recurrent training requirements of the Canadian Aviation Regulations. And so if you have a certification, you can log that. What you would do is after this event today, anyone who's participated in the seminar, I will send you a certificate. And if TC ever asks or they audit you, you can simply show them that you participated in this training today. Okay, so I'm going to ask both of our speakers tonight to introduce themselves. I know that you have some slides as well, but just a quick hello from each of you and a quick rundown of where you're from at least. Juan Carlos, let's start with you.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Juan Carlos, and I'm Spanish. I'm from Mexico, actually, and I've been in the drone world for like over 8 to 10 years, and that's it. It's a brief description of me.
I know we're going to hear more about your background, so
sure, yes.
Just a quick line. So same from you, Jean-Guy. Would you tell us where you are today and a little bit?
Hi, my name is, no problem. So my name is Jean-Guy Ouellet. So I'm the owner of KoptR Image. It's a school, a ground school for drone pilots, and I have some experience because I start my first class in 2012. So since that time, I'm playing with drones, and now I'm owning the school and having a lot of fun to develop and also meet people and that's why we are here today. It's to help the people to understand more about drones in Canada.
Okay, very good. I'm seeing Juan Carlos's screen go white. Are you seeing the same, Jean-Guy?
Well,
yeah, actually, we have a lot of connections seems to play around. So
yeah,
the
same,
connection,
same for me also.
The screen is on and off right now.
What you know what? What if I ask the two of you to well, Jean-Guy, you're fine. Juan Carlos, can I ask you to refresh your page? And for anyone out there who's having any issues, I ask you to do the same. Just refresh your page and we're good. I see you again.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay, so why don't we get started with your presentation then?
No problem.
Sure. Hold on a second.
As you're pulling that up, for anyone who has questions, throw them in the chat at any time and let us know what they are, and we'll ask them along the way. We'll be here for about an hour and a half. Do you want me to put it up,
Yeah.
Carlos? Oh, there we go.
Good.
Perfect. Okay, so welcome everybody. This is a small presentation, an introduction on how to build your first quadcopter, if not, if to buy it. It's a very introductory presentation. I will let Jean-Guy tell us more about the KoptR Image school.
Yeah, no problem. So actually, KoptR Image is in business since 2012, and we teach ground school and practice also for drone pilot and French and English in Quebec. So, and we also work a lot with Transport Canada about how the security in the drone area. So that's it. And KoptR Image is very pleased to be associated with the COPA for all these this webinar. So Juan Carlos also will be the main person to demonstrate the FPV and information about drone, how to build a drone. So myself, that's why I mentioned I'm a pilot since 2012, and after that I work a lot with different industry in the aeronautic industry, and I work a bit with the exotaxic on the field, and now and I'm also the owner, not the owner, but the chairman for the multi-rotor at the MAC field. So I have some experience with recreational and professional drone pilot. So that's a bit my background. So here my little picture and in my contact. So if you want to give me a call or send me a message or have more information, you have all my contact information over there. Yourself, my friend Juan Carlos.
So yes, I'm going to tell a little bit about my background. So I have a degree in medical electrophysiology as a technician. I've been doing that over a year, almost a decade. Like I said, I was doing drones. Like I got introduced into the world of drones about 8 years. All of that simply happened over a very common event of me simply buying the first drone and crashing it, and just got curious about all the electronics inside of how exactly would a tiny drone would fly, and that would be really it really caught my attention and and I got really curious about it. So during that time between 2010 and 2016, I was starting to hear like this drone community getting more and more popular and more getting more people into it, and I believe those are the years that the drone, especially the FPV side of the drone, is where it got more known towards the public. And I also got in 2015 certificate degree for CAD software using Acacia, and I've used that knowledge I've gained for also building and designing different parts of drones for myself, and like other than for like also 3D printing and for CNC machines. And I've passed my Transport Canada exam as a my first exam, and then I passed the special the advanced exam as well. And afterwards, I passed my instructor exam, and I had the chance to join and work with Jean-Guy recently this last year. So I'm pretty happy and excited to be here as well and give this presentation. If you want to contact me, you can contact me by my phone, or I'll be soon having an email as well, different from KoptR Image. You feel free to ask me any question you want. So before anything, all the questions we ask, the first thing is when we want to buy a drone, like, why do we need a drone first? What is our intention to do with it? Like, do you want to, is it more of a recreational aspect that you want to fly the drone? Is it more towards like speed? You want something more of a longer, like, those are very important questions to ask. Probably is like, what's your intention? What are you going to do with this drone that you plan to have? The other questions after that we have to ask is like, where we can fly this, when and who can fly it. Like, if there's obviously regulations that have to apply. So all of these are very important questions. If you, for all those folks out there, if you don't have any drones, but you're planning to get one anytime sooner. So these are very important topics and questions you need to ask yourself. You ask yourself all of those before asking it how you fly the drone. That's a very slow on and off process. But speaking of that, after that, let's see. So this is, like I said, it's simply an introduction of how to get into this world of FPV as it's gaining popularity. So I will leave Jean-Guy give like the basic concept, and afterwards I'll get more in details about especially the FPV side. Like, I'll help you differentiate and like give you more details a little bit later on. Jean-Guy?
Yes, sir. So just for a lot of people that I know that you're most of you are the aware about the aeronautics feature and also Transport Canada, but just to be sure that everybody has the same terminology. First thing, an aircraft is something that's flying, so and it's more used by the insurer and also for Transport Canada. And a remote pilot drone or airplane and winds is about the same, but it's an unmanned aircraft. And the other thing also, if you include also the remote control and everything, that's what we call a remote pilot aircraft system, or what we call an Rpas. So that's the system itself. And also, that's very important. In Canada, you don't have any specific rules for recreational or commercial. Actually, it's the same rules for everybody. So that's another thing that's very important. And the rules is based on the weight of the weight of the aircraft itself, or the Rpas. So actually, and the weight is calculated by what we call the maximum takeoff weight. So it's the MTOW. So that's how we count the weight, and Transport Canada count the weight. So it's very important to understand that. And the other thing also, since I would say the last 5 years, Transport Canada consider all the pilot as they consider the pilot as being a real pilot in the world of the civil aviation. So it's a bit turning in the for now in the industry. The other thing also is very important is what is the Rpas? The Rpas is for, like I said, a remote pilot aircraft system, but it doesn't matter what is the size or what is the configuration or what is the flight time of the Rpas. It's still an Rpas. So even you have, like in the image right now, you have the smallest one and you have the biggest one on the other side, it still be an Rpas. So it doesn't matter. And both are of that picture as it's an aircraft. Doesn't matter. It's an unmanned aircraft, but it still be an Rpas. So it's very important to understand that. And that's why actually the way that it's working at Transport Canada is based on the weight, like I mentioned. But it's you have three categories, three categories of the Rpas. Actually, it's less than 250 grams. That what we call the micro Rpas, or what we call, and we have also the small remote aircraft. That's the 250 grams to up to 25 kilograms, and over 25 kilograms, that's what we call a remote aircraft, and that's it. So that's the three categories that Transport Canada, and all the regulation in Canada is based on that kind of distinction. Also, we are going also to focus a bit on the micro RPA, because the micro RPA is something that is not really it's defined clearly, but in the we'll see the public discussion and everything like that on Facebook and everything like that, we have a lot of misinformation. So actually, we will try at the end of this presentation also to make the real distinction between the micro and the small Rpas. It's completely different. But the micro drone, what we call the sub 250, it's included in the regulation right now. We have a lot of rules that apply to the microdrone. Even that the people think that it's a model or that's a toy. That's not the truth. It's still an aircraft. It's still a remote aircraft, but it's only in the category of sub 250 kilogram. So it's very important to understand that it's still an aircraft, a remote aircraft. And that's why we have not a lot, but we have some regulation that is taking, we have to take care. The first one is the car, because all the Canadian aviation regulation, we have all the section of what we call the 900 section. So that's the place. And we have one rules specifically for the sub 250. The other rules is more for the between the 250 and 25 kilograms. But even that, you have also other rules that you have to respect the privacy rules. You have also to think that the microdrone is still an aircraft, so we have to have some rules that apply for all the aircraft in the civil aviation. So we can talk about that more in the future. Example, we have the Class F airspace. That's an aircraft, so even it's a sub 250, you're not allowed to fly in the Class F airspace. We have also to be aware of NOTAM, and we have to be aware, in fact, that we have to stay away of the airport and heliport also. And also, you're still always responsible of all the injury or any damage you can cause with your drone. Even if it's a micro drone or small aircraft, small Rpas, you have to think that you're still responsible for that. So, and that's it for this little part of what is the difference between the three categories that Transport Canada mentioned about the micro drone, the small aircraft or the small Rpas, and we have the real Rpas that is 25 kilograms and more. So we'll turn the other slide to Juan Carlos to explain more about the FPV style.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Jean-Guy. So, like I said, I was going to talk a lot more in details with FPV flying. So what I'll do basically is I'll introduce you three different type of flyings, mostly known as the racing, cinematic, and freestyle FPV. I myself, I built probably, if not 8, or if not 10, even last a few counts, how many different type of drones. But I mostly focus on the racing part or the freestyle. But in the very end, they're very similar, and like the basic concept of how they're built, they simply vary in different aspects of like how their electronic components. I'll go through that more in details a little bit a little bit later on this presentation. I'll also talk a little bit more about whether you should go into starting to getting to building your own drone, or if you have also the option of buying pre-made drones. So all of that I'll explain a little bit more in details. I'll also have the chance to show you a few video footage of each of these different style of flying. So first of all, let's start from the beginning. So what is FPV? Like, FPV simply stands for first person view. What does that mean? It's simply it's a way of flying a drone differently than the conventional way. So people, when you normally fly the drone, you fly it in visual line of sight. Sorry. And this new technology, which recently started to gain more popularity about 6 or 5 years ago, they came with this FPV system, which simply consists of having this immersive experience of how to fly the drone. So that's the definition of why it's first person. So it gives you this impression that you're inside the drone, that you're flying it as if you were a pilot inside directly. So it's a really interesting and really immersive experience that the pilot can have, compared to simply flying it from seen from a different perspective. So that's how FPV came to be, and that's how I really got more interested into how all these electronic components work and correlate between each other. So it's a pretty interesting machine, and drones are really not going anywhere. They're literally the future, and I'm really excited to explain more in details about it. So without wasting any time, let me show you, for example, I'll give you a brief description of like the main three types of FPV. There's the racing part. So like since the beginning of time, people love racing. So as soon as they saw that the drones that they were coming up in the market were like quite impressive in their performance, that was the first reaction people had. So why don't we just make racing out of it? So it's gained a lot of popularity worldwide. I know nowadays it's very popular in the United States. They even have their own channel. They consider it as a sport. Like ESPN is sponsoring these amazing events. These companies, there's a few companies of DRL, it's called. They actually go from places to places, and they pretty much ask for permission if they can hold these racing events. So it's getting pretty popular worldwide, because probably 2 or 3 years ago, a main huge event was held in Dubai, I believe, or Abu Dhabi, any of these countries. And over there, like they're pretty easy at hosting these events. So it's gaining popularity also in Asia, and slow, it has built a very interesting community, and the people in the FPV are very supportive of each other, and they love to help each other. And since all of this technology has been like recently open to the public, so it's gained really much more interest. Then the other type of flying, which is it's called the cinematic FPV. This one is less. It's more focused on a filming aspect. Let's say, for example, people would have liked to seen like a place from a different perspective. Like these pilot that they're flying in this type of of cinematic drones, they tend to want to get these movie shots, like Hollywood shots, and they've realized that there are some pretty decent high definition cameras, and they managed to get these footage that's almost as if they were filmed by Hollywood. So it's pretty interesting and very impressive of how these drones are capable of reaching those long distances. So this is already, I'll go through these a little bit more in details, because a racing drone is composed of the same parts of a cinematic drones, but there are a few components that are differently, they're simply is changed. For example, the receiver will be a different one because it's a longer range. So since FPV, you don't mind going a distance because it'll be a short distance. So that's a pretty interesting aspect. And the last freestyle, the last flying style is called the freestyle. So that would be like a blend in between racing and cinematic. What is freestyle? So that would simply be considered as a flying that you have no, you don't follow like a path, like a racing path. So you'll simply try to fly, like get this like a smoother flow, like getting more of into aerial combination. So I believe once you'll see the videos, you'll get a better understanding, a better idea of like the three flying styles are pretty different from one another. So without any time, let me show you the first one. So the first one you'll see is the racing event I was telling you about, which is held by DRL. These are the main people who started these drone races. So let me see this one, if I can show it to you. So have you noticed these are like more faster, really amazing drones that they pretty much follow these tracks. But all of this is really regulated by the DRL company. I don't know if it's a company or an association, but they pretty much held these events, and they're responsible for anything that's going on. But once these events are already approved, they have all the permission they need to. So these they're pretty popular, and there's a lot of people attending these events. One wouldn't even believe it how many people are very interested in these events. And like the ad said itself, it's pretty much the sport and the future. So that was pretty much the aspect of the FPV drone and how these events can be held. So if I go to the other flying style I was mentioning, it's more of the cinematic view, and you'll see how different it is from the other racing drone. You'll see there's a much more smoother, more cinematic view. It's pretty impressive that you can get these shots simply with a drone that you can build or pre-buy and with a good camera. And of course, there's the video editing part afterwards, but these are like all like different parts of knowledge you can later on learn. So let me show you the video. So this gives you an idea pretty much of the flying of cinematic FPV, and it's like I said, it's a more like a more slower pace, and the equipment you need is so different from those of a racing drone. Like I said, you have to really focus more on having better transmission, because these are very long distance that you have to fly. So normally the pilots are like always placed in facing the drone. So that's a pretty interesting aspect of it. And if I go back again to the presentation, the other last flying style was the freestyle. So let me show you a little sample of what freestyle is. Yeah, so this was really the flying freestyle FPV of it, and it's more like there's some really fast performance drones that are able to fly these style of FPV flying, and so like I said, yeah. So that was the flying FPV style, and like I said, it's like a blend between racing and cinematic. There's pretty pilots who are flying the freestyle have a pretty good dexterity and an amazing like spatial awareness that you have to like be able to maneuver and counter these obstacles. They obviously also they're very popular in the United States. They're very they're seen worldwide pretty much, but in the States it's something that a lot of people do. So now to the question of whether you should actually just build your drone or if you should buy your first drone. That's
Carlos.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing some questions, and there's a lot of good conversation. So before we leave the FPV topic for a minute, if you don't mind if I just bring the conversation here. So one being, can you actually fly FPV in FPV flying anywhere? This would have to be outside controlled airspace. And I saw that we had some questions and answers from Jean-Guy as well. So there's some conversation there. So maybe let's take a minute to focus on that.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you want to go, Juan Carlos? I can answer that.
You can go ahead if you want, Maggie.
The FPV drone is like any other drone, so it's considered as a drone for Transport Canada. So yes, but in fact, you can fly FPV as soon as you have to have a spotter with you, somebody that is see your drone all the time. So that's one thing. For the control airspace, what you need is to have also the fact that you have the authorization from NAV Canada to operate in the airspace, control airspace. But to be able to use your drone in a controlled airspace, you need to have also to a declaration of security for Transport Canada. So that's real for all the drone, what we call a small aircraft, so 250 grams and up. Under 250 grams, so you don't have any regulation about FPV, but you still have be careful what you use in your drone. So, and it's a recommendation from Transport Canada also to have a spotter because if you don't use a spotter, that means that you're flying like not really securely. So that's why it's very important to understand, again, the class between the sub 250 and over 250. So, but if you have more than 250 grams, you need to have at least a declaration of security by Transport Canada. If you
Juan Carlos, did you want to add anything on that?
No, it's pretty much exactly like Jean-Guy said. The important part is really the spotter, because as a pilot, you have absolutely no peripheral view. You're simply immersed into the drone, so you have no idea if there's a person walking or if there's a power cable. So that's actually the role of the spotter, is actually to keep those dangers away from the pilot and just let them know to be aware of those changes. So the spotter is definitely a must. There's no doubt in that. You really have to be careful with these drones. They can reach such an incredible speed, and they can do damage. So the spotter is definitely a must.
Okay, very good. Well, I think we'll see a lot of questions. So there's quite a few references to the Canadian aviation regulations. Let's continue on, but in the chat, can you let us know if you have a certification? I think that would be useful information for us down the road. So back to you, Juan Carlos.
Thank you, Sean. So as I was mentioning, so the question comes if you should really build your first drone or simply buy it. These are two different paths, but in the end, they really lead in the same part. So if you're really new to this and you're a person who's really a DIY person, that you're very curious and you're very manual, like you love to definitely, without any doubt, suggest you that you start building your own drones. But then again, this path, I will be honest with you, it's a long process, and you need a lot of patience, because there's so much topic, there's so much knowledge that you need to gain. And so it's, like I said, it's a slow process. It's an interesting process, because as soon as you learn something, you're gonna have to learn another one. So you have to have these mechanical knowledge, electronical knowledge. You have to have a little bit tiny background of software, because you need to program these drones. You need basic also knowledge of aerodynamics. So it's a very interesting hobby to get in, to be honest. That's what really kept my passion into it. And for those people who really doesn't want to know, or like doesn't want to they really don't want this technical aspect of it, in that case, there's also the option of buying a pre-built drone. They call it the bind and flight. There's different modes. So these pre-made drones are simply more available, and you would have to bind your transmitter directly to your drones, depending on which receiver you have. So then again, if you really don't want to have that aspect of or headache of building your drone from scratch, you can always buy it pre-built. But there's some pros and cons to that also, because it's a faster way for you if you really just wanted to fly it and try and see if you really want to, if you're interested in flying FPV. But if you crash it, and you will crash it, trust me on that, your drone will be, you can get some damage. So compare that to someone who already builds the machine, who already has like a knowledge of making this drone, will pretty much have a way much better understanding how to repair it. So that would be like better. People who actually would build their own drone would have a much more easier way of repairing, upgrading, changing their different pattern. You have so many aspects, so many factors that you can play around. Once you know how to build your drones, you can play with different propellers, you can play with different frames, EACs. Like I said, I'm going to go through more in details about what exactly these components are, and I'll give you like a brief description of what you should get first if you really want to go towards that path. I'll also present you these parts because it's pretty interesting to know how they work towards each other and how they correlate. So like I was saying, the propellers, like in the FPV community, they're pretty known as to categorize the drones in classes of the propeller size. So, but a very important thing I noted, and I took the time to write it down at the bottom, is that this by no means is not recognized as a Transport Canada regulation, because this is simply as a reference in the FPV community. But I wanted to show it to you guys because if you really get into the hobby, you will hear these definition of having, oh, I have a 5-inch mini quad. So what is the 5-inch? What is the 3-inch? What is a 6-inch quad? So that simply refers to the propeller size. So they found that's the easiest way to identify drone size. So by simply getting the radius, the diameter of the propeller, and that's how they categorize the drone class. So I'll give you an example, pictures of each of these classes. We have here at the left, upper left, 2-inch class, the 2-inch props. So these, the 2-inch and the 3 to 4-inch are, as Jean-Guy was mentioning, lower than 250 grams. You don't need any license for that. But then again, you have to be very careful because these drones nowadays are reaching very high speed and can definitely also do harm. So that being said, always have a spotter and be very careful because they are getting very, these drones are getting very fast and they're flying very, they're reaching very high speed. In the middle, we have the 5-inch class, which is probably the most popular and which is the one I personally build the most. These are really like the most popular, and because they're like a transition between smaller drones that people would want to fly at the very beginning, because you want to try a smaller one before you want to be able to like go into higher and more bigger drones. So you can get a more feel, like a better feel of how you're able to fly it, to handle it, like to maneuver it. So if you want to get into it, I really suggest you would go for smaller ones and slow build up or gain bigger drones. So that would be my first step if I was a beginner again. And after that, you can go, there's like 5-inch quads, the 6-inch, sorry. These are more like the cinematic drones. For example, the video that you just saw from Venezuela and the waterfalls, they would use this larger quad. So they're more stable. They have longer propellers. They're like way much more, they can hold much more electronic components. So especially you want to have a lot of room for your receiver, because it's a very important part. And then you would have like a 7-inch and then a bigger one. Those can be also like used for example, for like discovering a lot of, it would be like a lot of people use these for like also cinematic, because they can also carry pretty heavy camera, and some of them also use it for discovery. Like some people have seen they're using it for like discovery channels footage, and so it's pretty interesting as these drones can reach a very stable and interesting cinematic view. So like I said, now I'll go more into the technical aspect of it, of the drone anatomy. So I'll go more in details into each of these components and recommending you which one you should get first. If you're planning to build, this is a very interesting part to know. And if you're not planning to build, but it's pretty interesting knowledge also to know, because eventually if you if you fly it pre-built, you'll want to know how these components, all of these drone parts work together. So without that, the first part that you get is the skeleton. The frame itself is made of carbon fiber. So I have an example here. The carbon fiber is the go-to material nowadays. It's pretty strong. It's nearly unbreakable, and it's very light. That's very important to always weight your drones, because you'll see with the weights it flies differently. So these carbon fiber frames are they're very easy to find. Nowadays, some people are even using their own CNC machine. You can buy like carbon fiber plates, and you can design them yourself. And if you have a CNC machine, some people are even starting to make their own frames. So there's different type of frames, and you can go, there's so many choices out there. The next part would be the brushless motor, the motor itself, the one that gives the power and to move these, to reach these high RPMs, or revolution per minute. So these are normally for the 5-inch drones. That's the one I'm really focused on. Would be between, they reach between 38,000 RPM to 46, really depending on many aspects of the brushless motors specs. So they can reach very high speed. For the beginners, I would probably suggest you use at first an X-shaped frame and brushless motors that between 2,500 kVs. The kVs is simply it's a component that it's a constant that you actually will be able to tell you how fast the motor can spin. So if I go next, after one, that's what's attached to the drone, to the motors, is the propeller. So the propellers are made of carbon polycarbonate. So I have an example here if you want to see it. They're very durable, and they're very easy to get, and you should get, if you ever get into FPV drones, you really need to get a lot of propellers. There's different type of propellers, different shape, different numbers of blade. There's different also pitch you can pay. You can also play with that, so you can switch easily propellers and get a different flight experience and different way of flying. Especially pilots will be able to easily tell the difference between switching to one propeller and another one. It's a really different experience of flying it. You get a better thrust if you get a more higher pitch propeller, and if you get a lower pitch propeller, you will get more speed, a little bit less maneuverability. So these are very interesting aspect to play. You can play around, and it's very available to everyone to get these propellers. And that's it. So let me show you another part. So the next part we have is the electronic speed controller. So this electronic speed controller, if you want, these are very responsible for actually telling the motor how fast to spin. It's very important to here is an example of this one. I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty small. So these are pretty much regulate how fast the motors should spin. They control the current in it. So that is actually sent through the flight controller. And it's very, these can hold pretty interesting and high amounts of current. They can go from 25 amps to almost 40 amps. If not a little bit higher. So they're making these electronic components just as the computers. They come up with different brands and higher performance very fast. These are individual ones. Nowadays they're making these electronic speed controller all in one package. I have an example here for you. It looks pretty much like this, and you want to have probably one that you can pick between 20 amps, if not 30 amps to 40, just to make sure you don't you don't burn these, because these can easily can reach high amps. So the next component is the flight controller. So this flight controller is obviously the brain of the drone. You want to really have high performance processor of the drones. So they used to have these F4, these are the processors. Nowadays they have F7. So these are like much more higher performance flight control. They're more sensible. They have more UARTs. There are different parts. I'll give you an example. These are like old parts I've used before, and you really want to get a flight controller that has all these they call these UARTs. It pretty much works as if you're simply plugging a USB. So you want to get these UARTs, they call, so you can solder the camera. You want to have enough space to be able to solder all the electronic components. If not, some of them have even extra UARTs you can use for GPS, for different type of cameras, dual cameras. So that's a very important aspect. If you want to reach, if you want to probably go towards first build, I would definitely suggest you get an F4 flight controller and higher. Below that, they're pretty hard to find, and they're not as performant as they are, because the the other parts, as the motors or ECs, are no longer following these brands. So it's kind of like forcing you to get these parts that go with them. So if I go for the other one, this one I'll speak briefly with this one, because the power distribution board that was before responsible for distributing the current, but nowadays they don't make these ones anymore. I don't think they even exist. I have an old example of this one. So what this does is simply sends the current to the electronic speed controller. But nowadays the power distribution board is built all in one with the flight controller. So that's a pretty advantage they have, because you reduce a lot of weight, and it's much more easier to build and to solder. The other part is, of course, the FPV camera itself. So the FPV camera is, here I can show you another example. This is not to be confused, because a lot of people think this is the camera that is used to film the footage that you've seen, for example, in the other video I've shown you, but this is not the case. This is simply the camera that is broadcasting what the pilot is seeing. So if you would see the camera that this is the video that this camera is showing, it's a pretty bad quality image. Why is that? It's because if you would get a cleaner image, like a more detailed image, you would have a latency between what you're seeing and actually the position of where the drone is. So you want something that's really fast, be able to transmit all this information in real time. So you don't want something that's actually lagging, and from there probably you might already have hit the wall or something. You would still think you'd be flying, because since the latency, it's not synchronized to what you're seeing to what actually the drone is. So that's why these cameras have not such a great quality image, but they're very, very fast in latency of signal transmission. So that's a very important thing to consider. So you want to have the camera. You want to choose a camera that's really the fastest, has the shortest gap of latency, and you'll be very fine with that, because even though nowadays they're pretty they're getting much more better resolution and latency. So that's the race they're working on it right now. The other components is the video transmitter. So like this is linked directly to the video to the FPV camera, and this part is responsible for changing that signal of this signal and transmitting it into a wave signal, in which you will get into the FPV goggles. These are very interesting part of the drones, because you can play around with them, and you get a different power output of these. You can actually choose which power you want to put into these, and you can almost go to 800 milliwatts, if not almost 1 watt. and that's a lot of power that consumes. But you can get a very, very far good signal, video signal from a far distance, which is pretty much what they were using. For example, the waterfalls example, they would use 1 watt for these video transmitter. But the racing one, you don't need that such power to be able to race. For example, you'd be using a 200 milliwatts. So these parts really, depending on which type of flying you want to get into, you want to be playing with these ones, which different power output they have, and with that you be able to set which channel you want to look into your FPV goggles, and it works well with paired with an antenna, the FPV antenna, which is the other part that's connected to it. You really want to have a very nice signal, and those antennas are the one responsible for it. So this is really responsible for sending the signal from the video transmitter directly to your goggle, and you want to make sure that it's these are like there are different type of antennas. These are the most popular one used. I'll show you an example of the one I have here. It's this one, so it's directly connected to the video transmitter. There's all sorts of different type of video antennas. You probably want to get one that has a high resolution for those type of drones. And like I said, afterwards you get the transmitter. This is a huge topic. I'm gonna try and see and condense it the less possible, because transmitters, you really want to get sure you have very good gimbals, and there's a whole array of different transmitter out there. The prices also can vary, and they can reach pretty high prices as well. So if you're starting to this, you might probably get an example, for example, for a Fly Sky that's much more affordable, but you'll get less different like options. So in the end, you want to start with something basic, and the Fly Sky is just a brand I'm naming out there. Would be a good option for you, and you could try these. You want to make sure also that your receiver is the same one and is compatible with your transmitter, because there's a protocol. The protocol is simply the language that the receiver is communicating with the transmitter. So you want to make sure these are compatible and not different from one another. So these are important aspects you want to consider. So also, like I said, the receiver option. I personally fly the it's a module they're creating nowadays, and this is probably what was used in the video from the waterfall is a TBS crossfire module. They claim that this receiver and transmitter can reach up to 40 kilometers of distance. So I'm pretty sure some people who fly fixed wings, they'd be pretty familiar with this model.
Juan Carlos, I think some people are seeing all these parts and there's dollar signs popping up in their head of, oh, okay, let me calculate what this might cost. So there is a question of a general, like, rough idea of what these tend to range from in terms of numbers. That might be hard depending on the quality, of course, but if you could
Oh no, definitely. That's probably the first question a lot of people ask. So how much does these drones cost? It really depends. Like I said, if you're building it yourself, you're gonna have this option to choose, because of course all these companies are gonna want to simply give you the fastest one, the most performant. But then again, is it really what you need? By understanding more on how to build your drones, you'll definitely you'll see more what these motors have. There's the specs of these motors have, and like compared to a much more pricier one. So then again, you can always play with different brands, of course, and a different type of electronics. But if I could give you an overall, like an estimation of, for example, of these drones, this is an example of what I've built recently. I would give you an estimation of approximately between $300 to $500, no more, no less. And like I said, you can play with all these parts. You can get different motors. You can get different flight controllers. That's the interesting part of being able to build your own drones, because not only you can plan your drones, you can also plan your budget. So hopefully that answered a little bit your questions. But no, so like I said, like I was talking again about the transmitter, the other topic, the other part is the FPV goggles. So the transmitter and the goggles are probably going to be your most expensive part if you're going to get into FPV drone. If you're really serious into this, I would definitely suggest you get a good transmitter from the beginning and a good pair of FPV goggles. If not, there's also a range of like much more less pricier brands, like $100. These ones are like more between the $400 and can go a little bit higher than that. Like I said, if you're really new into this and you're really planning and you love this one, I would suggest you get a very good pair of FPV goggles and a very good transmitter. If I could give you an example of one I have, would be the X90, the Taranis. It's a very good choice to select. But if you simply want to give it a try, smaller drones, just to know if you really like this hobby, don't go right away buy the highest brand. It serves nothing for you to buy these expensive equipment, and then again after you don't like it. So you should probably build up slowly, and if you really are serious about drone flying. So going back again to the FPV goggles, there's like different type. The much more less expensive one are the box one. They're like much more bigger and a bit heavier, but even though you get a very good image display. The one I use are these ones. They're called the Fat Sharks. Those are like more, the screen is smaller, but you get a more immersive experience. They're very close to your eyes, and these work with antennas as well, because you get the signal that's picked up from the receiver, and you want to make sure you have a good field of view. And these are like display. You can play with a lot of settings also from the visuals from the camera, and also play around with the aspect ratio. You can get it at 4:3 or 16:9. So this is simply telling you that you would be seeing a much more wider screen, a little bit like in the movies. When you see movies and there's like the portion that like the image is more stretched out. As for the 4:3 aspect ratio, you get much more of a squared box. So these are like smaller preferences. And the interesting part with these FPV goggles is that you can actually record what you're seeing. And a lot of pilots out there, especially the freestyle pilots, find these very useful, because if they ever crash the drones and they cannot find it, they lose it, they can backtrack from the video from their goggles, and they can actually see where is that they crash, and they can easily find their drones that way. So let me see the other parts. And the other parts are like more the accessories part. Obviously, you're going to need some batteries, and the batteries that they are used in the FPV drones are the LiPo. Lithium polymer batteries. And from beginning ones, I would suggest you get between 4 cells. So these are the go-to, between 1500 milliamps. You want to get these batteries. Those are the best choices. And like I said, there's so many different variation of types of batteries you could get. Also, you have to take in consideration if their voltage is too high, you want to lower the kV on their motors, so you don't fry them. So it's a lot of details, and I'm just giving you a brief description of like the most useful for you. But if you want to start with a 4S battery, that would be best for you. You would also gonna need a charger to charge these batteries, and if you're getting into this, you have to be very careful with these batteries, and they're following a pretty strict procedure, because they can, if they do get overcharged, they can easily set on fire, if not even explode. So these are very, very serious battery to take care and be safe with them also. And of course, there's the camera. So the FPV footage that you see, the videos are usually filmed with high performance camera. So like, for example, the GoPro Hero 7. So you must already know this camera. So you can easily mount them on the drones, and you would get your nice flying footage film in 4K resolution. So that's it for me.
Yeah, just before starting the regulation parts, Juan Carlos, could you tell us what is the difference, or why we should build a drone instead of buying a drone?
Yeah, for sure. It comes really down to a matter of preferences. If you wanna, there's an advantage of building your own drones, and there's an advantage of buying your own first drone. The advantage, as I mentioned earlier, if you really want to go into the building your own drone, you really have to have a lot of patience, a lot of time, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty expensive hobby. And if you really want to be able to carry on flying these drones on the long term, you're obviously, like I said, you're obviously going to crash them, and you're going to need to repair them. If not, if you don't know how to build a drone, in that case, you're stuck with a drone that you've already bought, and yet you're going to have to have it repaired at a shop, and it's going to be very pricey. So if I could tell you what's the advantage of building your own drone and buying one, it's going to cost you way much lesser to build your own drones in the long run, compared to simply buying one that's already in the market.
For people that doesn't know what we call it, this is a drone that we bought from DJI. This is the famous FPV drone from DJI. So you can buy that one, or you can build your own drone. Example, like old style drone with, and if you are older like me, you prefer to build your old biggest machine like the DJI flame wheel drone, also that is very stable, but you have to know a bit all the parts that Juan Carlos, and maybe Juan Carlos, you can show some of your specific drone that you already built.
Yeah, well, I'm working on this one. This, like I said, this is a freestyle drone, and I've been changing a few components. I'm about to change another. I've got some different new parts. I've got if I can show you here an example of a tiny camera. This is an FPV camera. Hopefully you can see it. It gives a pretty good image. It has a 1200 TVL, so a very good image. This is an ESC I recently got also. I work for it also as well. And the 4-in-1 ESC. These are like pretty new components. I'm simply gonna testing. But in the end, like I said, building your drone is for me the best part you could go for, because eventually if you buy a new FPV drone and you crash it, you will eventually get curious on how to fix it yourself. So in the end, it pretty much leads you again to building your own drone from the very start. But it's a preference. If you really want to simply fly it and you don't want to break your head of how to repair it or anything, in that case, you'd be better off to buy already one pre-assembled from the market.
Good, thank you. So let's see if we can start the presentation for the not that one. Hold on, try to see the other slide that we have. Regulation, thank you. So for the regulation about all the drones that we talk about tonight, for sure that the regulation is based on 2 certificates that you can own. If you use a sub 250, as I mentioned earlier, it's not necessary to have a certificate to fly a drone. It's you can use your sub 250 kilograms without any certificate. But if you want to fly a drone with higher than a weight higher than 250 grams, so you need to have at least a basic operation or advanced operation certificate. And for both of them, you need to know at least some requirements or knowledge requirements that you need, and that's the section that the transport request. So at least everybody that has to use a drone in the airspace of Canada must know at least some information about that section. I mean, the rights, the regulation, the Rpas airframe and parts, and human factor, meteorology, navigation, flight operation, theory of flight, and radio telephony. Also, that's the radio section. But even for the basic, you have to know a little bit of information about how to understand the radio on the airspace. So, and the other thing also, if you have 250 grams and more, you have to register your drone at Transport Canada. So to do that, you have to go on the drone portal and you have to register your drone. It's only costs $5 to register a drone, and you have to apply your register number on the specific aircraft. So that's very easy also. And the other thing also, for the basic operation, even if you want to use a drone with 250 grams to 25 kilograms and uncontrolled airspace, that means that really in a space that it's not near an airport or something like that. So you have to keep 30 meter of each people that are around you, and that's very important to follow that rules. And it's not really restrictive for people that is living outside of a big town or something like that. The other thing also, you have to be 14 years old, older than 14 years old. You have to pass the Transport Canada exam, online exam, and you have to be allowed, if you want to fly near an aerodrome and or any class J airspace, you need to be sure that you don't you avoid any collision or any problem with the regular air traffic. So that's very mandatory. Also, for the people, when you have the certificate, it's very easy. You go on the Transport Canada website, you go on the security drone webpage, and after that, you can register for your basic exam. So it's 35 questions for 90 minutes. It costs $10. It's very simple, and the passing grade is about 65%. So, and it's, if you have all the knowledge and you have a ton of example on the web, on YouTube and everywhere, you can have plenty of time to search for answer, because you can, it's an open book exam, so you can use the internet to search, and it's very simple. Even that also, COPA offer a free course for the COPA member, so you can register on a web for a free course also. That's possible. So it's very simple to get your basic pilot certificate. I think most of you have aircraft knowledge and also aviation knowledge, so it's very easier for you to get that certificate. And the other part, you have the advanced operation. So if you want to use your drone in the controlled airspace, that's a bit more tricky. So you can fly the drone even over the people, or less than 30 meter, or less than 10 meter. That depends of how your drone, the type of the drone you are going to use. And you can also be sure flying in the controlled airspace. So that's the magic with the advanced operation. But it's more a little bit tricky, because you have to be 16 years old. You have to pass the flight, the exam, and a flight review also. That's something that you have to go on the field with the Transport Canada representative and pass a little, like an example of what we call a flight review. And with that, you also need to use Nav Drone to get your authorization by Nav Canada for to use your Rpas in the control zone. And after that, that depending of the air traffic, the air controller traffic can give you the authorization to fly a drone in their airspace. So it's and for sure you have to, the drone that you're going to use has to be compliant with the regulation also that in the list of the Transport Canada drones. And the big difference is the exam. So it's the same price, it's $10, but you have 50 questions and 60 minutes. Even if it's an open book, you have to be really, really fast when you enter your question. And the passing grade is about 80%. That's where most of the people has struggle a lot, because the exam is more difficult because you have more question and less time, and also the passing grade is higher. And the other thing also, the question is more tricky also for that part. So even that, it's very important to really study before starting your exam at that place. And for the Regency also requirement, as Sharon mentioned at the beginning, this seminar is counting for the Regency. So each 24 months, you have to requalify if you want to tell that, but you have to be sure that you're updating your skills or updating your knowledge about all the new regulation and information like that. So that's one of the seminar that you can use, but you can also go on the self-study program of Transport Canada, and you can assist also of a Transport Canada seminar. That's all the three things that you can do to be requalified. The other thing also that we mentioned that's very important is if now with the AEM, what we call the Aeronautic Information Manual, it's now we have a section, section 7 is the part for the Rpas. So we have a real good information in that section about the Rpas. So I really strongly suggest to read that section of the AEM. So you can find in the link over there, and we can put the link after on the chat. But we will share also our deck to the people, so you will be able to find the AEM manual. And again, for the drone specifically, you have the section 7 that you can read on that. The other thing is important tools that you can use as a drone pilot. You can go on the NAV Canada mapping drone, that what we call here the map.navdrone.ca. That's the drone map. It's replacing the old NRC website that we can have the information about the map drone. So now you can have this information at that map, and you can find all the airport, all the zone that you can use if you have a basic certificate or advanced certificate, where you can fly a drone legally in your Canadian airspace. And for the other thing also, if you have any kind of drone, I mean micro drones, small drone, or bigger, Rpas, you have to respect all the law that we have in Canada, even for the criminal. So you cannot fly over the any place that it's not normal, and you have to be sure that you don't trapezing and accidentally go on the intrusion of a own owner owns some place that you're not allowed to go to fly your drone. And also you have a specific law for provincial or municipal law that you have to follow, and be sure also about the privacy. It's very, very important, because almost of the drone that we use right now have a camera, so you have to be sure that you follow all these rules. The other thing also, most of the drone right now are the national park and provincial park. It's not allowed to fly a drone if you don't have any permission from the director of that park. So it's very important, and it's another law that the drone has to be, the drone pilot has to follow for sure. And other thing also, insurance. Be sure that when you fly a drone that you're well covered by an insurance, because officially it's not it's mandatory to have an insurance to fly a drone, but it's a real good idea because, in fact, you're responsible of what is doing or what's happening with your drone. So if your drone is falling on some people or on their highway or something causing an accident or something like that, the owner of the drone, or at least the person that pilot that drone, is responsible for all the damage and injury that get caused by the drone. And technically, all the person that have their own policy or own insurance is not covered because it's considered as an aircraft. So because it's an aircraft, almost of the time is you have a little policy in your own insurance that is you're not covered by your own policy. So you have to get a specific insurance for your drone operation. Even if it's a small drone or biggest drone, I will strongly suggest to get an insurance for your drone. So that, for me, cover the part that we have for the regulations. So I will pass the next is the Q&A to Sharon.
Just my cue. I'm ready. There's quite a few questions, so I'm going to try to put some themes around it. Starting with the insurance, I wanted to make a note because people like to practice, and you know, you're a member of MAC as well, so I think you understand some of the constraints around flying across the country. You can't really fly in a lot of, for example, municipal parks without certain insurance threshold. Could you speak to that, if there's any constraints like that in your region within Quebec?
In fact, you don't have any, you have to follow all the rules that I mentioned before. But normally, if you go in the CEPAC or any park, national park or provincial park, it's not allowed to fly a drone. So that's very important to have the authorization from the director of the park. The other thing also, we have some municipality that does not allow to take off a drone from their land. So if you go, example, in Boucherville or some place like that, you have to go a specific place where you have authorization to fly a drone. Even if you are recreative or a professional drone, that doesn't matter. The other thing, for sure, you have the MAC. That's another, and COPA member also can have access if they have access to a specific insurance for their recreational flight. So yes, we can have a small insurance. It's not a big amount of money, but it's something that we have to take care that to have a specific insurance when you fly a drone near people or where you think that you can cause any damage with your drone. I don't know if you answer your question. Maybe Juan Carlos can go do another part on that.
No, it's true. You really have to take in consideration where you're flying. Also, like Jean-Guy said, like, for example, CEPAC parks are strictly not allowed to fly anything yours. And I wouldn't see any people flying these drones, especially the FPV ones. You definitely want to really stay away from any air-controlled space.
To spell out when we use acronyms. So MAC is the Model Aeronautics Association of Canada.
Exactly.
They have some exemptions for flying, I believe. COPA. Hope you all know who we are since you joined our seminar, but we're the Canadian Owners and Pilots Association. And I wanted to ask about insurance because COPA has an insurance program, yes, but for individual pilots, but we also have a chapter network. And I want to throw it in the room. You don't have to answer here, just to get your ideas flowing. But we have chapters where you can host events, and we have insurance coverage. What I've seen is there's a lot of municipal parks, for example, where the requirement is, I think, $2 million in liability insurance. And so if you form a COPA flight or chapter in your area, if you can't fly in a park, we can help with that. And I mean, I'm trying to fly, and it's difficult because all the places I want to fly, I can't, you know, in a municipal, provincial, federal park. So I want to find other pilots out there. So throwing that out. So that was insurance. Now there's a few questions regarding certification. So let's confirm the time period between getting your advanced certification and then when you can do the flight review. Is it right after, or is there a bit of a grace period?
Yeah, actually, what you do have to do is, first of all, you have to pass the exam online for the advanced. For the basic certificate is simple, but for the advanced, you have to pass your certificate, your advanced certificate exam online. And then, when you pass your exam, you have to take beg your pardon?
The practical exam, the flying.
Yeah, that's what we call a practical advance, but in fact, it's the flight review. So you have to take a schedule with a flight reviewer, and that's something that at KoptR Image we can do. But we have flight reviewer around the Canada, so you have to take a schedule an appointment with the flight review, and after that, normally a real good flight review take about 2 hours, an hour and a half, and 2 hours. And that mainly the way that and it's very detailed about what we have to check in the flight. It's online, so we can post also the information about how to the phone, and you can avoid obstacle and stuff like that. But I would say 90% or 95% of the flight review is based on the security. What you do if something happened, about your procedure, about your checklist, about how to handle a urgent situation, what to do if you have a fly away and stuff like that. All the things that you have to handle, and how to prepare your operation plan and your flight plan for a specific operation, specifically in the control zone.
I know you have a list or a resource, but maybe one tip for anyone who's preparing for their flight review, whether it's bring extra batteries or fire extinguisher, anything.
Yeah, in fact, when we prepare the thing, you should have at least the mandatory information. So you have to have something to control fire. You have something to take care if somebody is injured. You have to have something to be sure that you delimited security zone. So most of the time is an extinguisher. It's a first aid kit and cone or something like that to delimiter security area. And for sure, all of the documents and everything like that. That's the thing that you have to use. And normally, that's part of the training that we given to the people to prepare to pass their exam. And we also give a practical ground school, and that's where we talk about how to handle everything and be prepared for the flight review.
Very good. Thank you for that. So I know there's a few people here who are looking for more on registering the custom build. So you did share earlier, Jean-Guy, of going to the TC website and registering. I imagine it's a lot easier between registering something that you bought versus something that you built. And there's some mention of the manufacturer declaration document. Can you talk more about that type of documentation?
Yeah, in fact, for to declare an official drone so that you own build, normally it's the manufacturer that is doing that. It's not the owner. Example, if you take about DJI or you take Drone Vault or something like that, they ask Transport Canada. They make it not legal, but I mean conform, not conform. What do we say that? Compliance. Sorry. So actually, they make compliance. But if you build your own drone and you want to be compliant with what we call the 922. Not what in French we say norm, but it's not norm, it's the statement, whatever. And after that, you have to be compliant with that rules also. So to do that, you have to fill a form, and you have to follow that 922 statement. And after that, you have to send the information to Transport Canada. They will revise that, and they will accept the drone or something, the qualify. But be sure that if you do something like that, it's more simple.
If I could add something, sorry, Sharon. If I could add something regarding building drones, there are some specific parts. For example, the brushless motors. I have one example here, which is this one. They normally come with a QPAS code, which is, we consider a certification. I hope you can see it from here. But it pretty much it's pretty much a declaration from the manufacturer that these motors can be trusted. And obviously, there's a chart in Transport Canada whether or not these motors can be they're approved or not. So yes, some equipment, some of these electronic parts, they do come with their declaration from the manufacturer. So I just wanted to specify that and clarify that.
I like that. I can imagine there's quite a few people who get blocked by all the paperwork, right? And then and then you get stuck there. Perhaps there's more that we can do from KOPA's perspective. Not necessarily doing it for you. We're all responsible for that paperwork, but some guides of some sort. I would be curious of, for anyone who maybe stays away from controlled airspace but has the right certification when they're first getting into it, what would your suggestions be? I think air traffic controllers scare everybody. And I come from Nav Canada, so not me.
But first of all, if you follow any training or something like that, you know how to handle. You have to use a nav drone. That's an application that Nav Canada put in place, and with that nav drone, you can create requests for authorization to fly based on the map that I showed earlier. But and it's very simple. If you're not really risky, and if you're flying really low altitude and something like that, the authorization will come really quickly. It's about like a few minutes to get your authorization. But if you go more, we'll say near an airport and the flight path or something like that, yes, the authorization could take more time, and with that also it will be more difficult to get there. But it's not complicated. It's just procedure in terms of Nav Canada. And when you follow all the rules and you follow all the procedure, it's very simple to get the authorization from Nav Canada.
Okay, very good. So Jean-Guy and Juan Carlos, are you using Nav Drone?
Yes.
Any advice on using it as well? I know it's a new software.
I can see a lot of people saying that it crashes. You just have to give it time, because these applications, especially when they come up, they keep updating it. So you need to give it a little bit more time to fix these bugs, and the application will eventually become better. But yes, it's pretty usually like Jean-Guy said and specified. It's a pretty user-friendly app. So it makes it less complicated. A lot of people get more intimidated into, oh my gosh, where do I start in order to fly safely? So this app is pretty straightforward and gives you exactly step by step what you need to do in the permits and the request authorization you need to fly in a specific control zone.
Yeah, and NavDrone has also a version on the web, and we have a version for the mobile application. And also the way to communicate with Nav Canada. So it's very simple. You can get your authorization when you go on site the day for just a few minutes before your flight. Just tap that you start your flight, and that will advise the ATC that the flying is going through, and you have all your authorization number. And when you finish, just tap the button that's saying that you'll finish your flight. That's it. For sure, if you go more, like I said, more near the airport or something like that, and your the control space is more with more traffic or something like that, you may have to call the ATC on the cell phone or something like that. But most of the time, you don't have any problem, and it's very straightforward to use that drone.
Very good. Alain and Giuseppe also agree that it's great that it's available and it's free as well. So it avoids some of that back and forth that you would normally have with, a large company who is dealing with a variety of aircraft to manage as well. I know that there was some interest earlier, more so on the advanced certifications. So maybe we'll stay with that last question around TC. if you could walk us through a bit of that. And I should note that in August, we will host a seminar again on advanced certifications, that topic. Any advice for preparing for your advance? I'm actually working on it right now, and I have a book this thick. And I like it. I personally enjoy reading all the materials, but I can see how it could easily deter somebody who's just getting into this as a hobby. So how to get through that and become familiar with the regulations.
Yeah, in fact, it's for it's very different if you use your drone for the hobby or if you use your drone for, I mean, in terms of regulation is the same thing, but for the preparation and everything, that's very different. If you go on near a city or something like that, it's more complex. The idea when you prepare your plan or something or trial review, you have to take care about what if something goes wrong? What if it's, something happened, you know? You have to think about all this kind of information, and that's why you have to be sure that you have to do your site survey. So you have to write down your site survey, not just say, we'll do a site survey. You have to write down what your expectation, and when you goes on, when you're on site, you look if it's what you plan is really what happened, because something else could change. The other thing also, you will look for the information that we want to have on your plan is what is your security in case of somebody injured, if you have a crash, if you lost your communication, if you lost your communication with the ATC, so all this information has to be on your plan. And after that, who I call if I have any problem. I mean, most of the time you have around your operation, because if you have a fly away or something like that, your drone can just go on the one side and fly for about 10 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, depending on the type of the drone. And at full speed, you can really reach a lot of distance with your drone. So you have to think about what we call a circle of problem. So you have to be sure that you cover all the airspace area around the 15 kilometer around. So you have to check, and you have some tools to do that plan. But mostly you have to check on your airspace map that what kind of airspace you have around, and you have to take note of phone number to reach them, and just in case something happened. That's kind of information that you have to put on your plan. And also, what is your checklist to use also? That's the thing that for a flight reviewer, you're looking to what is your preparation for your flight. So that's the basic stuff that you ask to plan on your documentation.
Basically, what you want to, like, if I put in smaller, broader lines, you really want to think of imagining the worst case scenario that could happen, and you want to be prepared for that. Also, the planning aspect of it, you will really want to, if you could just like think of those exams, you just want to really see it in a safety and security perspective. You want to just be sure that everyone is safe, every property is safe. So you always have to envision these questions, like regarding how to pass this exam. You really want to be sure that it's seen in a perspective security point of view.
Okay. I just see a question about if I have my private pilot license, should I have to should I have to pass the exam for drone? And the answer is yes. The private pilot license doesn't have anything aware with the drone certificate. It's completely two different. So you have to pass your basic certificate or your advanced certificate. And we know because our school is based on the airport, we deal a lot with private pilot. And it's very tricky and funny when you see the private pilot comes and try the exam to Transport Canada, because it's very hard. So most of the time they said, come. And we have some tricky question, and I don't want to go too more deeper in that, but the Transport Canada advanced exam is really difficult for people that doesn't study or take care of that.
I mean, I think that there are some similarities and some knowledge, but you'd be surprised at how there are nuances in what an RPAS pilot needs to learn versus a private pilot who has their PPL. So definitely something to look into. We hosted a seminar last summer, so I'll try to dig it up on transitioning from traditional aircraft to remote aircraft.
Yeah.
So I'll look into that. Maybe let's go a little bit more into the parts again. I know that's very popular and just about FPV. So anything is specific that you want the group to walk away from in knowing about the core elements of building a drone, Juan Carlos?
Sure. Like I mentioned again, a lot of people just pretty often ask me if whether to build it or to buy it. Like I said, it really comes down to a matter of personal choice. And if you're really someone who's into technology and really want to understand the process of how things work, and then by all means, I definitely encourage anyone to start going towards the path of how to build the drones. And like I said before earlier, you really want to take this as a slow process. It's a learning process overall, but in the very end, it's a very interesting, and you will get lots of knowledge. If not, you will become a more. It's a really a DIY person out there, but don't get intimidated by any of these old technical aspects. Like I said, the FPV community is it's a very fun community, and they're very supportive of each other. Information is out there. YouTube is a very good source of information as well. There's plenty of books out there. The information is out there, and it's very easy to find it. And there's a lot of people you can reach out to if you have any questions, any doubts of any parts. It's pretty there. It's pretty much there.
What are your thoughts on, or what are your favorite resources? I imagine some folks would go to anywhere from retailers that sell kits or some specific parts to Facebook Marketplace, to Facebook groups, to Reddit and other forums. Any advice there?
Yes, I personally order my parts online, so everything is. I use the website. It's called Banggood. So there's also other retailers in the States. You probably want to be sure to be careful not to buy too much because there's a lot of cloning parts. There's a lot of flight controllers out there. They're not really authentic, so you got to be careful with that. That's why I usually tend to buy more from retailers that are in the States, because they usually really inspect wells and stay away from these clone parts. They found sometimes a few flight controllers, they're not really, they're pretty much like a copy of an original one. So those you want to be careful. You want to be sure to purchase your equipment, your electronics from well-known sources. Retails, they said online, so that you're pretty safe going on with these stores.
It sounds like a great business opportunity for a Canadian option or larger Canadian options. Leonard in the chat says local hobby shops are a great resource, and I mean, I think that's probably.
Of course they are. Of course they are. They're probably, they even themselves, their retail shops, they must get these parts from the States as well. So no, they're totally reliable, and you just really gotta see where the part is coming from and the specs and everything it has. But definitely, if you have a retail shop near you, you can definitely be sure those are safe equipments.
Very good. I want to go back to the FPV racing from the very beginning. In your video, there was someone who went when there was a crash, and I want to experience that personally. Could you tell us more of the drone racing league in Canada, or just drone racing in Canada? Have either of you participated in events, attendee, or?
I haven't personally attended yet to any racing FPV. Like I said, in Canada, there's a few clubs out there managed to localize, but it's not as popular as it is in the States. In the States, it's pretty it's a huge thing. And here, I do believe here in Canada, it's getting slowly there, and it's getting more popular. A lot of people are getting more into those. And probably the only event I probably remember that it's been held was one-time racing at the University of McGill here in Montreal, and that was it. That was probably the only event that I know of that I can remember. There must have been other ones. Probably I wasn't aware of them, but mostly clubs are the one are held, or like they pretty much reserve this area simply strictly for racing and like more of a recreational aspect of it. But no, to answer your question, Sharon, the feeling you get from seeing and putting those goggles, it's pretty impressive. I myself personally, at the very beginnings when I started doing that, I got dizzy because it's you can get really dizzy at first, and the images that you get are pretty fast-paced.
Right. Yeah, that's right. For the McGill was the first FPV event in Canada, so it was about I think it's 4 years ago. But we still have some club like in Vancouver, a club in Montreal. We have FPV Canada. That's also we have Team Canada doing some competition internationally. We have a few folks that is doing that, but we only have one, I think, and it's now it's Gab. Was one of our world champion. But actually, that's true with the pandemic stuff. Everything was cooled down. But now we have a lot of people that starting again, and we have some local competition, and we have also, like you mentioned earlier, a big competition with the international competition that is starting very soon.
Mm.
Very, very good. I see that some other folks in here were at the McGill event, and yes, there's the Canadian Pro Drone Racing League as well. So if anyone has any other questions, I do ask you to put them in the chat. Maybe we can take one more, but as we're waiting, Jean-Guy, do you have any last remaining words to share with the group tonight on whether it's getting started with building your own drone or getting the right education to fly and operate safely?
Yeah, I would say first thing is the security all the time. So most of the people doesn't think that it's only a toy or something like that. But we know that, like as one caller discussed earlier, that little flying aircraft is really, really, really small, but also can go at more than 100 kilometers. So it's you have to be careful when you use a drone, not specifically for you, but all the people around you. So be sure that, and the other thing also is to follow the rules. Because it's very important. The rule is not there for to bother you. It's there because they want to protect all the people. For sure, some people has some complying about the fact that the complaint about the fact that the rules is there, but in fact it's to protect everybody. And if a lot of people break the rules or wants to be free, the problem with that is Transport Canada would just constrain more and more and more. So that's the problem that we have. So be sure that you fly safely and be sure that you follow at least all the rules that are already in place.
I would probably say along the same lines as Jean-Guy. FPV hobby is a really amazing hobby, and people who don't fly responsibly just simply hinders this hobby and gives it a bad image of what it is. So that would be my best tip I could give, is to fly responsibly. Don't fly dangerously. Don't put anyone or anything or any animal in danger. Follow the rules. The regulations are there simply for a reason, and it's to follow them and to keep this safety for everyone.
Oh, I love that. And I'm seeing the numbers grow and grow from TC. I think the numbers are at almost 70,000 certifications in Canada now. And I mean, the rules are fairly new. On the trend of safety, I did want to mention there is a new tool that was recently launched. late last year, the Rpas safety management system. I don't know how well known it is within this community in particular, but it's the first reporting tool for incidents and accidents for drones. I want to say in the world, but definitely in Canada. And the reason why that's useful is because your insurance, right now it's a new industry, and they're here for business. Right? They want the stats, and by filling in more and more information, it's not punitive for one, and two, by having more details, more stats and insights, we can improve the flying. We can share that with insurance providers and brokers and underwriters to get you the coverage that you may be looking for, especially for recreational pilots who more likely wouldn't report an occurrence, but I mean, you don't have the same insurance coverage that a commercial business would. So worthwhile to consider. It's COPA sponsors it through Aerial Evolution. They had launched it last year, so worth noting that. I had mentioned it earlier of the Rpas Advanced Certification Safety Seminar that we have coming up in August. And before that, if you want to meet the COPA community, we have a big fly-in, national fly-in, being held in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, actually on the weekend of Saint-Jean-Baptiste Day. So there'll be fireworks. There'll be it's going to be a big party, and you're all invited. We have KoptR Image who will be there as well, so you can come up and meet them at their booth. But I'll be sure to send out an email after with their contact information if you want to get in touch. And again, take advantage of some of the benefits that we have here of, free basic training, some discounts for other training as well. So I do see one potential question. No, I think we're good. Should we need to update AIM every year during drone? Should we need to update AIM or CFS every year during drone flying, or it's optional?
Yeah, no, it's not optional. You have to, for the AEM, it's optional. But as I mentioned, I post the answer is the link to get the AEM. It's free, so you can download it, the PDF. So you will see also all the update from the previous version. It's like in blue a little bit in the PDF. So it's a good thing to keep update, to read that document. It's the regulation, but it's like more for no, people. It's not the law itself, but they explain the objective of the law and everything like that. So that's very important. But for the CFS, yes, it's mandatory to have at least because the CFS document, so it's the Canadian Flight Supplement, it's updated to each 56 days. So you have to get your latest version. But we have tools like Rpas, Wilco, that is tools that we use, and we are partnered with them to be able to get the map and the CFS up to date all the time. So you can contact us to get more information about that, and it will be, or you can also get membership, but the agreement with NAV Canada to get this. For this, but it will cost a little money also from NAV Canada to get the update all the time.
Yes, they've changed their model recently on that. Yes, I'll leave that there. And just a reminder, tonight's seminar did qualify for the 24-month pilot recurrent training for Rpas pilots. So a certificate will be sent out to you shortly. So that you can keep that should TC audit you. You're seeing a lot of comments in the chat saying, great presentation. Thank you very much. So I think that's the way to end things. Thank you, Juan Carlos. That was an excellent presentation of walking us through everything you need to know to build. And then Jean-Guy, all the rules. It's so important that we know it, and so appreciate the time that you spent with us tonight. Thank you. And we look forward to hearing more from KoptR Image.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for having me.